Hi everyone, welcome to this lesson. I am Dr. Madhuri Goswami and in this video lesson we are going to take up some important grammar rules which are commonly mistaken, and these rules are related to the use of verbs in English grammar. For example, like if in a sentence we have a single verb and two subjects, then what should we do? And if there are two auxiliary verbs with one principal or main verb, then in that condition, which rule is applied? Or if we have one auxiliary verb with two principal verbs, in that condition, what should we do? Which rule is applied? Dear students, किसी भी सेंटेंस में वर्ब का यूज़ करते समय कुछ कॉमनली कंफ्यूजिंग पॉइंट्स हैं. उनमें से मेनली 3 पॉइंट्स को इस लेसन में डिस्कस किया जाएगा, एंड दिस लेसन वुड बी वेरी यूजफुल फॉर ऑल द लर्नर्स ऑफ इंग्लिश एज अ सेकेंड लैंग्वेज. सो स्टे ट्यून टिल द एंड ऑफ द लेसन. Let's find out what are these rules. The first one is, sometimes a single verb is made to serve two subjects, which gives rise to errors. Let's take up one example to explain this point. I am 18 years old and my sister 16. What do you think? Do you find any grammatical mistake or something missing in this sentence? इस सेंटेंस में एक सिंगल वर्ब है am और दो सब्जेक्ट्स का यूज किया गया है I and my sister. As per rules, there are two clauses in this sentence and they are connected with the conjunction word and. So, my sister, this subject will take another verb and that would be is, because we are using the verb be, the form of the verb be in this sentence. So, with I subject we use am and with my sister we use is. So, this sentence should be written like this: I'm 18 years old and my sister is 16. Now, let's take up the second rule about the use of verb in which we find common mistake, and that is the use of two auxiliary verbs with one principal or main verb. क्या एक प्रिंसिपल वर्ब और मेन वर्ब के साथ दो ऑक्सिलरी वर्ब्स का प्रयोग किया जा सकता है? The answer is yes, but in some conditions. Okay, let me tell you this in detail. Two auxiliary verbs can be used with one principal verb with one main verb only when the form of the principal verb is the same for both the auxiliaries. It means किसी सेंटेंस में परफेक्ट कंटिन्यूअस टेंसेस के अतिरिक्त एक मुख्य क्रिया के साथ एक प्रिंसिपल वर्ब के साथ दो ऑक्सिलरी वर्ब का प्रयोग किया जा सकता है, जबकि दोनों ऑक्सिलरी वर्ब्स के साथ प्रिंसिपल वर्ब की सेम फॉर्म यूज की जा रही हो. लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड दिस रूल विद एन एग्जांपल. नो गवर्नमेंट कैन और विल ever go against the will of the people. Please pay your attention. In this sentence we have can or will as two auxiliary verbs and go is the main verb, it's the principal verb. And with can and will we use the first form of the verb and that is go in this sentence. So we can use two auxiliary verbs with one principal verb here in this sentence. चूँकि इस सेंटेंस में can और will auxiliary verbs हैं और इन दोनों ही auxiliary verb के साथ main verb और principal verb की first form का यूज़ किया जाता है. That's why इस सेंटेंस में दो auxiliary verb can और will के साथ principal verb go का यूज़ एक ही बार किया गया है. It's not like this, no government can go or will ever go. It's like no government can or will ever go. So we haven't used this principal verb twice in this sentence because there is no need of using it again, as we can use the same form of the verb, the same form of the principal verb with both of these auxiliary verbs. That's why we are using here two auxiliary verbs with one principal verb. Let me explain it in detail with one more example so that there should not be any kind of confusion. Here is another example. I have never allowed and will never allow such a thing to happen. In this sentence, we have two auxiliaries and two main verbs. Why so? Why cannot we use one main verb with these two auxiliary verbs? Because the main verb in this sentence, that is allow, it should be used with the auxiliary verb have in its past participle form, that is the third form of this verb, and with another auxiliary verb, that is will, always takes the first form of the main verb. So with these two auxiliary verbs, two different forms of the main verb are used. चूँकि इस sentence में I have never allowed and will never allow such a thing to happen. इस sentence में have and will ये दो auxiliary verbs यूज़ की गई हैं और इनके साथ यूज़ होने वाली main verb allow का यूज़ दो बार किया गया है. Why? Because have takes the third form of the verb. Have के साथ हम main verb की third form का यूज़ करते हैं. That's why allowed. Have allowed. परंतु दूसरी auxiliary verb will के साथ main verb की first form या base form यूज़ की जाती है. That's why इस sentence में main verb का प्रयोग दो बार किया गया है. दोनों auxiliary verbs के अनुसार ही main verb का प्रयोग किया गया है. I hope it's clear कि एक sentence में दो auxiliary verbs के साथ एक principal verb का प्रयोग तभी किया जा सकता है जबकि दोनों auxiliary verbs के साथ प्रयुक्त होने वाली principal verb की form same हो. जैसा कि हमने first example में notice किया, no government can or will ever go against the will of the people. और यदि किसी sentence में दो helping verb का प्रयोग किया गया हो और दोनों ही helping verb के साथ main verb की different forms use होती हो, in that case we don't use one principal verb with two auxiliary verbs. As we have seen in the second example, I have never allowed and will never allow such a thing to happen. So notice the main verb allow, we have used it twice and in different forms according to the helping verbs. Now let's take up the third point, and that is one auxiliary verb with two principal verbs. Well, it is quite permissible to use only one auxiliary verb for the two verbs if the second would be the same as the first. यानी किसी sentence में दो principal verbs के साथ एक auxiliary verb का प्रयोग हो सकता है यदि दोनों principal verbs के साथ प्रयुक्त होने वाली auxiliary verb same हो. चलिए इसे एक example के थ्रू समझते हैं. 10 candidates have passed and 6 failed. In this sentence, we have two principal verbs, two main verbs, passed and failed. But notice the use of one auxiliary verb, that is have. So it is permissible because both these main verbs, passed and failed, they take the same auxiliary verb. So we can use one auxiliary verb with two principal verbs here in this sentence. यानी इस sentence में past और failed दो main verbs का use किया गया है with one auxiliary verb have. चूँकि subject verb agreement के अनुसार दोनों principal verbs past and failed दोनों के साथ एक ही helping verb का प्रयोग किया जाना है and that is have. So we have used it once. So it is okay to say 10 candidates have passed and 6 failed. But we cannot say 10 candidates have passed and 1 failed. This is not permissible to say. Why so? Because in this sentence we have two different subjects. 10 candidates, that is plural, and it takes the helping verb have. And the another subject is 1 and that is singular, so it will take has. So we should say 10 candidates have passed and 1 has failed. So it's quite clear कि किसी भी sentence में दो principal verbs के साथ एक auxiliary verb का प्रयोग तभी किया जा सकता है जबकि सब्जेक्ट वर्ब अग्रीमेंट के अकॉर्डिंग दोनों सब्जेक्ट्स और प्रिंसिपल वर्ब के साथ एक ही ऑक्सिलरी वर्ब का प्रयोग किया जाता हो. So dear students, I hope you must have understood where we can use a single verb to serve two subjects, where we can use two auxiliaries with one principal verb, and where we can use one auxiliary verb with two principal verbs. So remember these rules and try to avoid these grammatical errors. Bye for now. Thank you for joining. Happy learning.